What is up, everybody? Welcome to another weekend roundup here on Touchline Talk. Didn't necessarily expect to start with Tottenham Liverpool, but here we are after that wild game at Anfield. If that's not a perfect encapsulation of the way this season has gone and just the way this season has unfolded for both of these teams, I don't know what is. Liverpool go 3-0 up, look like they can do no wrong, and then don't really do much for the rest of the game, and then blow the 3-goal lead, only for Spurs to then allow a last-second equalizer immediately after Richarlison finally scores his first Premier League goal for the club, and it's Liverpool who walk away with all 3 points, but you don't feel convinced by them really at all. That just about sums it up. And I do want to focus more on the Spurs side here. Obviously, a big 3 points for Liverpool. You're trying to get a Europa League spot. They're in a really good position to do that. This was another important step toward that goal, because the Champions League is, in my view, gone at this point. You're fighting for those Europa League spots. But I came away from this game really thinking about the Spurs side of it. And this is the major worry moving forward. This isn't the first time, but it was another reminder of the situation Spurs are in. This is not an effort or intensity problem. And you know it's not an effort or intensity problem because there's a real argument they should have beaten both Manchester United and Liverpool after going down 2-0 to United and 3-0 down to Liverpool after getting humiliated by Newcastle. By the end of the game, they had created the better chances on both of those occasions against two Big Six clubs immediately after that Newcastle game. This team cares. These players care. And generally players care, but specifically this group. And I know they get so much criticism. But you got to applaud their resiliency here. And it makes it all that much more concerning because maybe a new manager is able to fix just a team that's not invested. But that's not the issue you have here. The issue you have here is that on the first goal, Trent Alexander-Arnold was given all day to pick out whatever cross he pleased. And you can't let anybody do that. But if there's one player you can't, it's probably him. And then Pedro Porro decides he's going to go double team. I think it was Cody Gakpo, whoever the Liverpool player was, who was being dealt with just fine, instead of actually staying, at the far post and being aware of the right quarter of the field like he's supposed to. And Curtis Jones just walks right in unopposed. That's the problem. That doesn't get fixed by playing harder. That's an awareness issue. That's an ability issue. That's a soccer intelligence issue. That's a personnel issue. That takes a lot longer to be addressed. And that's the problem Spurs are facing. There is no quick fix to this, and you're seeing it time and time again. This group just isn't good enough. You're not going to get somebody to come in and change the way this is going. They have the talent, and it's still not working. Because for whatever reason, this group of players just cannot live up to its potential. There is no getting more out of this group. This group is who this group is, and they are flawed. And you saw it in this game with the goals they conceded. And certainly, Antonio Conte and his approach did not help with this, because they just don't show up for the first 25 to 40 minutes of games. And I've been talking about this all season. It's not a sustainable model for success. And you can't just rewire players immediately to go do something different when that's been drilled into them for a year and a half, however long it was with Conte. 2 seasons, essentially. You can't just undo all of that. That's a choice you made when you hired Conte. And so now here you are, where in the same game, you went from, Levy out, this team is terrible, to, oh my goodness, they rescued a point, to, of course they didn't because it's Spurs and they gave up a goal immediately after getting the equalizer. It's just all of it wrapped into one. And I have a hard time seeing, maybe they can get the Conference League spot. Because you're talking about 7 teams here, because the Manchester clubs are going to win the domestic cups no matter what happens in the FA Cup final. So you've got those extra spots available. But to me, I see Liverpool and Brighton as the Europa League teams, heavy favorites to get those 2 spots. And so I just left this game thinking about the Spurs aspect. And how in the world do you change this without going through a painful rebuild? Because that's what needs to happen. The answer is, to me, you don't. You have to just start this thing over. Because, right, Pedro Porro, Richarlison were supposed to be those pieces to take you to the next level. Richarlison hadn't scored in the Premier League all season, and Pedro Porro is showing all kinds of defensive vulnerabilities. And you would want more from the center back position. If Christian Romero is your one reliable center back, that's a problem because he's not reliable. And you want more in the midfield. And finally, Son has kind of been unleashed, and he was spectacular in this game. And they hit both posts coming right out of halftime. And then scored 2 more goals. They could have easily had 4 in this game. But they just can't put it together. They cannot get out of their own way defensively. And they keep making these mistakes. And it's just, they can trick you at times. They can look great at times. They can rescue results because of how good they are going forward, how good they are on the counter. But this is just not a sustainable model for success. And I don't see any way to tweak it. And this game was just another reminder of that for me. How do you convince this fan base you're close when this is what you've put them through over the last week? And also applaud these players. They do deserve that. Because they could have just crumbled, and instead they got a point against Manchester United and nearly got a point at Anfield. But that makes the concern that much bigger because it's not an effort thing. It's an execution thing. And that means you need to improve the squad. And they've been trying to do it, and it hasn't worked. And so to me, the only way forward is to go through a rebuild. And that starts with selling Harry Kane. I've said that before. I'll say it again here. You got to just kind of start this thing over if you're Spurs. A couple other things I want to mention real quickly from the weekend. First, Napoli were so close to clinching Serie A. They got the help they needed from Inter. They had the lead. All they needed was to see it out. Naples was ready to explode, and then they concede a late equalizer. And so they don't officially get to clinch Serie A. They are about as close as you possibly can be. I find it hard to believe we go another match day without them clinching because they just need one thing to go their way at this point. So ultimately, it's not a big deal, but it was all set for them. Everybody thought that they had it. The fans were ready. And now you kind of get a 3-week celebration here, starting with the Juventus game. Now you kind of got a fake celebration here too. And then finally, you're actually going to get to celebrate when they clinch. So very interesting weekend for Napoli. It was all set up and they just couldn't seal the deal. And then the Bundesliga. Bayern back on top after Dortmund are forced to settle for a point against Bochum. I made the point before that game. They had 5 left. 2 of them were on the road. They've struggled on the road this season. If they got past this game, they were in really, really good shape because 3 of the final 4 are at home. They couldn't get past this game. Now, they had every opportunity. It's not like they played poorly. And you had basically an acknowledgement that they missed a penalty call that should have gone to Dortmund that could have won them this game. I want to acknowledge it because it's part of this story in terms of how we're going to remember this title race and in terms of Dortmund's role in this, because they did just about all they could in this game and it just wouldn't go their way. However, I don't want this to become an excuse and they would have won the league if they would have gotten this penalty. No, the points you should be looking at are the ones they dropped when they were winning and up a man, and they couldn't hold on to that lead a couple weeks ago. Bayern are handing this to them. And Bayern ultimately did get their win to retake first place. But Dortmund should have built enough of a cushion where one thing that goes your way, one unfortunate break, doesn't cost you a title. This is not where the title was won or lost. If Bayern go on to win the rest of their games and win the title. Those were the 3 points you had in the bag, and then you threw 2 of them away. This is one where you feel like you probably should have had 3, but you could have built yourself the margin of error, and they just haven't been able to, no matter how bad Bayern have been these past few weeks. And now Bayern finally going to win, and so Dortmund have to do it all over again and hope Bayern stumble somewhere, which Bayern's schedule is more difficult. This is certainly not over, and there's a very good opportunity for Dortmund to run the table and put as much pressure as possible on Bayern. But they had their opportunity, they caught some bad breaks, and now Bayern are back atop the Bundesliga. Final thing I want to get to here. What happened between Angel City and the Portland Thorns was wild, and it just had to be mentioned. I really wanted to talk about it. Don't do too much with the NWSL regular season with everything else going on until we get, into the summer when everything is done in Europe. But my goodness, what a game. And you got just about everything here. Alyssa Thompson scores. She is looking like the real deal already and is making a strong case to make the World Cup squad for the U.S. this summer. Olivia Moultrie plays in one of the best passes you will ever see. Absolutely incredible. So your young stars are on full display. Then Julie Ertz, welcome back, scores a goal. And to top it all off, the equalizer comes in the very last moments of the game from Portland Thorns goalkeeper Bella Bixby on a back heel. I mean, what more could you want from a game? This is going to be just really fun to watch all season long. The Thorns trying to obviously repeat. And this Angel City team is very, very intriguing. I'm still not entirely convinced. But this is the kind of performance that makes me feel more confident that they can really contend for a title this season. And we need more data on Julie Ertz and exactly how much she impacts this team. Because they have a long way to go based on where they were last season. But the 2 additions, Alyssa Thompson, Julie Ertz, have been very, very good so far. And Ertz, we're still kind of waiting to see how it all plays out. But she's already gotten a goal here. And Alyssa Thompson's been sensational. So this team is becoming very, very intriguing to me. And I just wanted to mention this game, like I said, because we got a goalkeeper goal. We got young stars delivering. We got big names delivering. It was just about everything you can ask for in a regular season game early in the NWSL season. So keep an eye on both of those teams as we kind of ramp up to the World Cup this summer. That is all for this edition of the Weekend Roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.